you. Thank you for joining me. This has been a long time coming. It really has.
Yeah. And thank you, Christine. I'm honored to be here. I've been following you for a long time. Your stuff is awesome. You bring such beautiful light and energy and frequency into the universe. And I'm
Mhm.
glad I can bring some of mine into it, and we can share some stuff. But I was discussing a little bit because you had asked me a question before we came online about how I kind of got involved in some of this stuff, and we talked
Yes.
about Steve Sims and Joe Polish and Genius Network, and I was telling you about Glenn and Natalie Ledwell, and so after I had written this song, that's how I met them. After I had written this song, because I have a company called Success Songs, which are songs that I've written for people in the personal development world, branding them musically, because I'm a marketer, obviously. Used to be
Mm-hmm.
in the jingle business. And so success songs are really songs that'll change your mind states, behaviors, and beliefs so you
Mm.
hear life from a higher vibration. And so I wrote a song for Chris and Janet Atwood for their book called The Passion Test. And they said, well, you got to meet Natalie and Glenn Ledwell. I said, who are they? Mind movies. I don't even know what that is. So I ended up meeting Natalie, and Glenn and I became fast friends. And they ended up taking a lot of my music and putting it
Mm.
in their platform so
Mm.
people were able to put their mind movies to my songs as well as other
Mm.
music. But that's kind of how I got involved with them. But the reason I was asking you about if you knew Glenn was, so Glenn has a great mastermind called Flight Club,
Mm.
FLIGHT. And if you're ever do you live in the U.S.?
I do. Yes. I travel a good bit, but I do live in the
I
US.
I listen. I was following you in Italy. Trust me, I was
It
there. I
was
was I was there. I was
wonderful.
there. I was there with you. Um, but anyway, so Flight Club is a mastermind. It's really high end entrepreneurs and digital marketers and so forth. And so we meet 3 times a year in Vegas. And if
Okay.
you ever want to go, we can talk about this offline. If you ever want to go, let me know. You come as my guest. But it's
I
a great
would
group.
love
It's a
that.
great group of people, and you would love it. Okay, and they love you,
Oh,
of course.
I love that. Honestly, Paul, I flew very last minute to Austin, Texas yesterday. I guess Tuesday night. It was 10:50 p.m. I bought a flight, and then the next morning at 3:58, I woke up and flew to Austin to be with the Driven Mastermind. And I was thinking, and it was propelled by the loss of Steve Sims last week or 2 weeks ago now. I was like, man, these are the people, these are the people that I want to invest in. And I'm so excited. Like even this relationship with you, this has been a long time coming. And I want
Yeah.
to invest in these relationships because this is what we have. There's a book, Die with Zero, which really talks about our bank account should be
Hmm.
one filled with experience rather
Of
than
course.
filled with money at the end of our lives. And so effectively we want to kind of plan out and forecast our financial expenditure to match our experiential and age so that we kind of end and die with zero. And we can, give money to our children and things like that. And frankly, there are financial benefits to giving money before you die so that you don't pay as many taxes. But I just love that concept that experiences and people are really what we should be measuring our life against rather than our bank account. And that
Uh,
just is a fundamental difference.
Absolutely. I mean, I call it a relationship frequency because, the
Mm.
free, so my frequency, and this is what I believe, take it or
Mhm.
leave it.
Yeah.
My frequency attracted you. Okay.
Mm.
Because your frequency is in my frequency.
Yes.
Okay. We had never met, but we just knowing how we show up, right?
Mm.
Allows me to realize that, what, I'm going to reach out to Christine because this is how it happened. I saw what you were doing and I said, no, I'm going to reach out to her. And I reached out to you and I said, hey, I'd love to be on your show because I am not bashful. Okay. I am
Mm.
not bashful.
I do love that.
And that's how it happened. But talking about Austin, so Austin is kind of like my second city. So,
Mm.
do you know David Gonzalez?
No. Well,
Okay.
honestly, I don't think so. When I
Okay.
looked up some of the people you were mentioning earlier, I was like, "Oh, I do know them."
Yeah. So
So,
David Gonzalez ran the Internet Marketing Party for many years,
okay.
and he was my first affiliate manager. But I just joined a mastermind in Austin with a guy named Joe Stolte. Um,
Yes. Yeah. Oh,
Okay,
he's
it's called
wonderful. He was on the Knowing podcast as well. Yeah.
right, it's called Prime Elite. Okay, and it's all about AI in business. So
Yeah.
obviously, listen, we can talk about AI till we're blue in the face. Everybody's talking about AI, and the truth of the matter is that there's a lot of people that know what they're doing. There's a lot of people that don't know what they're doing. But the truth about AI is you are in control of what you get out of using AI. Okay,
Mm,
there's usually two camps to this whole AI thing. One is AI is going to destroy the world. That's one camp. Okay, great, whatever. Or
mm.
AI is a tool. AI is a tool that can help you move forward in
Right.
your life, and it all depends on how you interact with it, right?
Mm.
And so Joe's got this great group called the Prime Elite, and a lot of great people in there that I'm sure you would know. And so I just actually joined it. I was in Austin 3 weeks ago, and and
Wonderful.
and so it's really really good. But I love Austin. I got a lot of good friends in Austin.
There's a
Who
lot of wonderful people here. Part of me is like, I've got tonight, and there's driven people here. There's so many friends here. This is Paul.
right.
I love hosting knowing dinners because
Yeah.
it allows for me to curate the guest list. It allows for me to curate the conversation too. And so these dinners are really fostered by an intentional question, which allows for the people to go around the table and answer and really bear who they are. And actually, this
Uh-huh.
is something I wanted to talk about today. We talk about people and experiences really being the hallmark of what constitutes living a great life. And
Hmm.
all of that has to be predicated in this deep rooted knowledge of our identity and who we are. And I wanted to ask you, you talk about relationship frequency and you talked about how you're not bashful, and even, I mean, you saying I'm not bashful, thinking about Steve, that was one of the things that stood out most to me about him was how he just obviously, well, not obviously, I think all of us care at the very end of the day what people think to the extent that we want connection.
Mm.
That's a primal human need is human connection. So we care to the extent that, okay, let me not be a psychopath, but at the same time, just being really free to exist as we are. So I wanted to ask you your journey of coming to this place of not being bashful and being brave and showing up and taking life for all that it will give you.
Well, thank you for that. It's a great question. And I agree with you about Steve. That's one of the things I loved about Steve. So, my journey's been an interesting journey, Christine. I started out many, many years ago. I went to college on a basketball scholarship. So I was a big athlete, and wanted to be
Mm,
a pro basketball player. And of course, that takes dedication, determination, and discipline, okay, which
mhm.
is really and commitment, which is really four things that everybody needs in their life. Okay. If you really want to get from point A to point B or wherever you want to go to in your life.
Right.
And so I remember I went to the University of Vermont. It was a Division I school. And I remember walking out on the court the first day and looking around and going, oh my God, these guys are good. Now
Yeah.
I was the star in high school. I was the star.
Yes.
Okay. And class president, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so I realized I said, okay, if you're going to do what you want to do and you want to play basketball, take it to the next level, then you really got to dive in, brother. Okay. And I
Mm,
basically didn't. I gave up on myself. Okay.
mm,
And I talk about that a lot in my journey and the kind of stuff that I do with people and clients and so forth. But so I ended up quitting school,
mm.
didn't know what I was going to do. And a buddy of mine was quitting school at the same time, and he was becoming the road manager for a rock band called Edgar Winter's White Trash. Now this
What
is
a
in the
name.
seven, right? This is in the 70s, okay? And so I said, great, Neil. He said, what are you going to do? I said, I don't know. He said, why don't you come and work with me? I said, well, what would I do? He said, well, you'd be a roadie. I said, what's a roadie? You drive a truck around the country and you set up equipment. I said, oh, I've never done anything like that in my life. He said, don't worry, we'll have a lot of fun. Anyway, he was right. So that particular thing got me involved in this rock world. And I won't go through the whole thing, but the last thing I did in that world 6 years later was I was
Mm.
Pink Floyd's tour manager.
Wow. That's so fun. What a good story.
So I traveled the world with Pink Floyd for 2 years and ran their tours, right?
Wow.
And I was 24 years old. Okay. So what that did for me is it really gave me an idea of what business was, what organization was, what
Mm,
responsibility was. right? And what accountability was and the whole 9 yards, which
Mm.
is things we all need in life. And then after I finished that, I got into, I quit school and I quit that and I was going to get a law degree. I'm very fast. I love the law. Okay.
Mm.
And don't worry, I didn't become a lawyer, so you can't call me whatever. So anyway, so I ended up going back to school. And then my brother was a recording engineer in a company that did music for advertising.
Mm.
So I was going to NYU 2 days a week. They said they were looking for a second salesman, right, to go around to biggest advertising agencies and try to get business. So I ended up doing that. So talk about not being bashful. So I
Yeah.
have no formal music background. So I would sit in these meetings with the the presidents and the creative directors of these big agencies, BBD&O and J. Walter Thompson and all the agencies, and they'd hand me a script. They'd go, "Here, Paul, what do you think about this?" And I'd look at it, Christine, and I'd sing them something on the spot.
You just come up with it.
On the spot, right? Now, I had no I had no inhibition. I just said, "Freak it, I'm going for it," right? So, make a long story short, I ended up becoming their executive producer, this music company, their executive producer. And then my brother and I left that company, started our own company.
Wow.
He and I had a falling out. I still love my brother, but I love him from afar. That's another story.
Mm.
And then I started my own music company, Paul Hoffman Music. And my first big account was Ford. So I wrote, "Have you driven a Ford lately?"
Wow. I love that, Paul.
Right. And so that jingle was
Yeah.
it ran for 9 years. I did every Ford commercial on radio and TV for 9 years, made a lot of money. I did many other accounts at Burger King and McDonald's. I mean, I was probably one of the top 10 guys in the country doing this, right? 10 guys or women, if you will, doing this. And then what happened was I acquired, that's why I like to tell the story, a very robust, which is one of my favorite words, cocaine addiction. So
Mm.
I had a $2,500 a week cocaine addiction.
Mm.
And I snorted that for almost 10 years, that 8 years.
Mm.
And that led to a major breakdown that I had on November 14th, 1988, where I had a
Mm.
psychotic reaction. Another story, because you and I will talk about it offline. And what happened was I ended up getting put in a straitjacket. You ever been in a
Mm.
straitjacket?
No.
Very uncomfortable. So they put me in a straitjacket at St. Vincent's Hospital, took me to the 14th floor psych ward. Okay. And that was the last time I ever did cocaine or drank. Right. That was
Wow.
almost 40 years ago. And so that kind of opened my eyes to lots of things and kind of woke me up to a lot of things and really got me on a journey of self-discovery, or what I call
Mm.
personal discovery. That's what because I call myself a personal discovery architect. A lot of
Mm.
times when I talk to people about what I do, they say, "Oh, you're a life coach." I said, No, I'm not a life coach. There's a lot of life coaches. There's a lot of teachers. There's a lot of
Yes.
trainers. I'm a personal discovery architect because I'm interested in actually creating my own noise. There's so much noise out there, right? That if
Mm.
I'm going to break through the noise and really,
Wow.
stand in my uniqueness, if you will, that I'm calling myself a personal discovery architect, which is what people go, "Well, what the hell is that?" Okay, and I basically tell them what that is. And so I ended up moving to LA after I got uh, my fourth rehab. Okay, my fourth
Mm.
rehabs are interesting. So my fourth rehab, came back to LA, got involved in a spiritual community in LA called Agape, which is a church
Mm.
that Michael Beckwith started many years ago.
I've heard of that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was on the board of directors of it, and I met a guy named T. Harv Eker, right?
Mm.
Um, so do you know who T. Harv is?
I recognize the name.
Yeah, so T. Harv had a company called Peak Potentials, kind of like a
Mm.
Tony Robbins kind of guy, right? So it's
Right.
about 12 years ago. So he had his signature course was called the Millionaire Mind Intensive. Okay.
Hmm.
And basically, over 3 days, what he did is he taught people how to change your money blueprint. Because as you know, everything emanates from you. The most important conversation you have every day. Now, this is, by the way, and I don't mean this to be a slight, this is the second most important conversation I'm going to have today. the one with
Mm,
you. But the most important conversation I'm going to have today is the one I have with myself.
yes.
How do I talk to myself? How do I empower myself? How do I inspire myself? How do I turn off my inner critic so I don't let my mind traps, which is my word for limiting beliefs, take over and take me down a path I'm not interested in going down? Because we have to be disciplined and diligent and resilient because life happens. You know this.
Mm,
I mean, I
mhm.
walk out the door, man, and life happens. And either I'm going to be able to go down the path that I want to do, which is why I have this great morning ritual I do, or not. Right. And so I ended up going to Harv's thing. I'd never been to anything like this before in my life. It's like a Tony Robbins event, 5,000
Yeah.
people jumping up and down and all that stuff. Right. And again, it was called the Millionaire Mind Intensive. And so after the event, he comes up to me and says, "Hey, man, what'd you think?" I said, "Harv, you're an amazing teacher, man, but your music sucks." He said, he said, "What? I'm not bashful." He said, "What do you mean my music sucks?" I said, "Why don't you have your own signature song?"
Yes.
I wrote "Have You Driven a Ford Lately?" You're probably too young and to know when and that because I wrote that in 1970, right? But I mean, I can talk to people who are in their like maybe 40s, 50s, whatever, and I can say, I wrote "Have you driven a Ford?" and they'll go "Lately" because they know it, right? And
Wow. I love
and so
that.
and so I said, "Well, your music sucks." She said, "Yeah, what am I going to do about that?" I said, "Well, I'll write you a song." So I wrote him a song called "I've Got a Millionaire Mind." I'll send it to you.
Mm,
And the reason I use that title is because during the 3-day event, he'd say, turn to your neighbor, give him a high five and say, "I've got a millionaire mind." Again,
mm.
it's all about programming. It's all about repetition. It's all about knowing and really feeding yourself really good stuff so that you can then live in that frequency. Because I always talk about frequency because everything's frequency. So I ended up writing this song called "I've Got a Millionaire Mind." Sang it live, 5,000 people jumping up and down, high fiving. He comes up to me after and says, "Can you write songs for all my courses?" I
Wow.
said, I said, "Well, if the deal's right, I can do anything." See, that's my big negotiating tactic. So if anybody's in negotiating and listening here, just use that. Whoever you're talking to, if the deal's right, I can do anything. Okay. And then you let them tell you what the deal they want to do, and then you work it out. So I ended up writing 16 songs for him. Right. And then Jack Canfield called me. Now I had never
Mm.
met Jack. Okay. I knew Mark
And
Victor.
for the audience, who's Jack?
Jack wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul.
Mm.
That book series. He and Mark Victor Hansen. So I knew Mark. Jack calls me and says, "Hey, Paul, this is Jack Canfield. I heard Harv Eker got a song. How do I get one?"
Wow.
And I said, I think I'm onto something. So I created this company called Success Songs. Okay. SUCCESSSONGS.com. Go to it, put your name and email in. I'm a marketer, sorry. And I'll send you 2 songs. But so it went from Jack Canfield, Mark Victor Hansen, Robert Allen, Brendan Burchard, Lisa Nichols, Marcy Shimoff, and the list goes
Wow.
on and on. So I've written songs for all these people, right? And then from there, what happened was I ended up meeting a good friend of mine, still a guy named Vishen Lakhiani, who owns Mind Valley, right?
Mm.
So Vision, I have a program. It's called Good Morning, Great Day. I do videos
Mm.
every day on it. It's a program I've created teaching people how to create a morning ritual. And so
Mm.
Vision said, "Hey, I'd like to do a program with you about how to create a powerful day." So we created a program called Day Sculpting, which I'm
Mm.
now revising. But Day Sculpting is a 90-day program. I'm not trying to sell anything to anybody, but Day Sculpting, 90-day program teaches how to create success one day at a time by doing 3 very strategic things during your day. Takes you 30 minutes, 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes midday, 10 minutes at night. And then what happened was I kind of met all these other people in the personal development world, okay, which I call personal discovery, okay. And so I ended up calling Harv back up one day and said, "Harv, I want to start speaking." He said, "Well, what are you going to speak about?" I said, "Well, I'm going to speak about personal discovery, habits, rituals, mind
Right.
state." I call it mind state. I don't call it mindset. I understand this. Everybody calls it mindset. I like that term, but I believe that your mind state creates your mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I
And
agree.
so,
When you put it that way, that really resonates.
and so I ended up starting to speak on hard stages, got booked on other stages, created all these programs, and I created this platform, which I now is my main brand, and it's
Mm,
called Sculpting Your Life. Right.
mm,
And the metaphor for sculpting your life is, and you were just in Italy, is when Michelangelo saw this block of granite, he saw David. All he
yeah.
did was take everything in the way out of the way, and there's David.
Right.
Right? David's a masterpiece. And
Mm,
so once you understand, including me every day, Christine, every day I work on this. Once you understand that the biggest obstacle everybody has to what they want in their life, whatever that
mm,
looks like, is themselves. So
yeah.
once I know how to get out of my own way, which I'm pretty good at, but not great, okay, which is good because the universe always is testing me. The universe is
Mm,
always testing us. Universe is always going to give us what they know we're ready for, okay? But
mhm,
once you understand that the biggest obstacle of success is you, then you get to create. Then what happens is you get to sculpt the masterpiece known as you, because you're a masterpiece. There's nobody on this planet like you, Christine, or
mm,
me or anybody listening here. We're all unique and we all have our own frequency. And what
mm,
happens is we end up somehow, again, that whole inner critic, internal conversation, we somehow end up talking ourselves out of what we want because we don't think we deserve it, or we don't think we're worthy, or we don't, whatever it is, whatever you tell yourself, what you got to do is you got to kind of break that chain. You got to
mm,
break that chain and start really understanding that you were put on this planet. Everybody on this planet, 8 billion of us, 9 billion, how many people, however many the people are on the planet, we're all put on this planet to bring our unique gift to the planet.
mm,
And if you don't bring your unique gift to the planet, then you're breaking the chain and the puzzle is incomplete.
mm. I love that perspective. Yes.
And so that's kind of what I do. So through sculpting your life, I do it through music. I have a brain technology that's been downloaded by more than 3 million people. I created it for Mind Valley. I created Mind Valley's meditation platform through my
Wow.
technology. Okay. So binaural beat technology that I do it like nobody else does it, and I call it sculptations because everything's about sculpting, right?
Mm,
And but the truth of the matter is that whatever you're doing, whether you're listening to Christine's knowing podcast or knowing interviews, which are always going to be inspiring, always going to be empowering, always going to bring great information. I'm talking to you, the audience. Then start doing things that feed yourself good information. Because I got to tell you, I always say life's an either or principle. Okay,
mm,
it's really simple, Christine. Either you're going to do it or you're not. That's it.
mm.
There's no maybe. Okay,
Right.
because maybe is not a day of the week. Okay,
Right.
so it's either you're going to do it or you're not. Now, what's going to hold you back from not doing it is your internal conversation. What's going to propel you forward is when you start to change that conversation. It's
Mhm.
really simple. It's really simple. And so I end up like saying, okay, so if I'm going to want to do something in my life, listen, I followed you before I reached out to you. I said,
Mm.
you know what? I'm going to reach out to Christine. Maybe we met. You said we think. Maybe we did. Maybe we didn't. I don't know. I've done this many,
I don't
many times.
remember.
I've done this many, many times. I reached out to you. I sent you a text. I said, hey, Christine, love to be on your show.
Mm,
Now, you might get that from a lot of people. I don't know. I hope you do because it's a great show, right? But I reached out to you because you know what? There was a frequency. There was a frequency
mhm.
alignment between us. And here's what happened. Look, I'm on the show. Okay, it's pretty awesome.
Right.
It's pretty awesome. I'm honored. It's a great gift, and thank you for it. And so the truth of the matter again is that when you stop to realize, or when you don't realize, I should say, that everything that in your life is controlled by you. Every thought, every choice, every action, every belief, every behavior that you have determines what you're going to do in your life. And so
Mm,
if things aren't looking the way you'd like it to look like, then it's kind of not rocket science. Change something.
Right.
change something. And the truth of the matter is, and I was before this call, I was out on the beach getting ready to do a video, and then I said, "Oh, I got to get back in. I got to get ready." Just before I speak and doing anything, a podcast or a stage thing, I always spend about 5 minutes, and I ask myself one question:
Mm.
Where is my frequency?
Mm. Paul, can I interrupt you for a moment? Can you explain what you mean when you say frequency? Because you've said it a couple of times, and I actually wrote this question down. This is really powerful in terms of, well, first, aligning terms is incredibly important, right? To make sure that we're all talking about the same thing. So when you say frequency, and that this is one of the most important things any of us can ever do is align frequency, what do you mean by that?
So when I talk about frequency, so everybody everybody on the planet, all 9 million of it, billion of us, whatever it is, has a unique code, a unique
Mm,
frequency. So that's a frequency. So I have an energetic, we can call it energy if you want. You can call it flow. I don't call it those because everybody else does, to be honest with you. And Christine, I got to tell you, if you're going right, no disrespect, I'm going left. Okay. That's just who I am. Okay.
and why is
But
that?
because I want to make my own noise. There's a lot of noise
Mhm.
out there.
Right,
So how am I going to break through the noise? I'm going to create my own noise. Now, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
right.
But if I don't do it, then I'm cheating myself from establishing my uniqueness, which I already have. I'm already unique. I'm not being egotistical. I'm already unique. Why not live it? Why not bring my uniqueness, my frequency, which you don't have, because I don't have
Mm,
yours either, out into the world? So your frequency is your inner, so I always talk about, we've all heard this expression, um, um, your inner reality creates your outer circumstance. Jim
yes.
Rohn and all those guys back then. And I thought, well, that's pretty cool. So I'm going to change it because I'm doing my own thing. So I say my environment, environment
Mm,
creates my environment, en.
I love that.
So I'm working on every day. The first thing I do is work on my environment.
Yes.
I work and make sure my environment is aligned with what it is and how I want to show up in the
Mm,
world.
mhm.
And I don't want to show up to please you. I don't want to show up to please anybody. What I want to do is I want to show up in my frequency, because my
Mm,
frequency, when I'm aligned with my frequency, what happens is I attract like frequency, because
yes.
life is a mirror image. It's a mirror image. How you show up, what you put out is what you get back. It's not
Mm,
rocket science.
right.
That's why you got to be very mindful about what you watch, what you listen to, what you read, right? Who you hang out with, talking about our relationship
Yes.
frequencies, who you hang
Yes.
out with, and most importantly, how you talk to yourself.
Mm, mm.
And that's what frequency is for me. Right. And so, Tesla said, I think what energy is everything, whatever he said, whatever, but that's all true. So again, if you can really understand as a sovereign human being that everything that happens in your life is a direct result of who you are, how you
Mm,
show up, and what you put out. So I
yes.
remember, Christine, a great example of how this doesn't work, okay, is years ago when I was in the throes of my cocaine addiction. Okay. I remember that, I mean, I was a real, I'm going to use a nasty word, kids. I was a real asshole. Okay.
Mm,
And the drugs and alcohol stuff really got me out of my frequency and put me in dark places. Okay.
mm,
So thank God. Thank you. Thank you, God. I'm back. Okay. I've been back for
mm,
many years, but I remember there was a time when I was, in the process of getting, um, sober, and, and I ended up, and I ended up, when you do drugs and alcohol, and if they call you had a slip. In other words,
Mhm.
you did whatever. So I slipped. So I went back to this counselor, and
Right.
I wasn't interested in getting sober anyway. But anyway, I went back to this counselor, and he said, "So man, what happened? Why'd you slip?" And I said,
Mhm.
"It was Christine's fault. That was my
Yeah,
ex-girlfriend.
right.
It was so Christine maybe slipped." So then I never forgot this. He said, "Let me ask you a question, Paul. Did Christine hold the spoon of cocaine under your nose, or did you?"
Mm.
And I said, "Oh, that's a good point, man." Anyway, I still blame. Anyway, I still blamed her. But that's what happens is, we blame things on other people.
Yes.
Sometimes we think we're a victim. The truth of the matter is there is no blame and there is no victim. There is no right. There is no wrong. There is none of that stuff. All there is you.
Mm.
And since this thing called you, which is a great book that Ernest Holmes wrote, um,
Mhm.
this thing called you is really the driving force
Yes.
that creates everything in your life.
Yes.
And once you accept that responsibility, that's one part of it, and hold yourself accountable, that's the
Mm.
second part of it. Then what happens is everything that comes into your sphere of frequency
Mm.
is either going to align with you or it's going to repel,
Mm. Mhm.
right? And I'm interested in hanging out with people that are in my frequency.
Yes. Yes. And to your point, man, radical responsibility is a concept that I talk a lot about. And it sound again with the frequency, we both really, really align on that. And y'all, there's something, just speaking directly to the audience for a moment, there's something about when we do assume radical responsibility that eliminates all of our excuses, yet we're taking all of our power back. All of the power that
Mm,
we've given to everybody else, that we then get to blame them for our life circumstances. We get to retain that power. And yes, it is a hard thing to confront the person in the mirror and have all of our external circumstances serve as a mirror to reflect what's going on inside. To Paul's point, the inner environment versus the environment out there. But that's the beauty and the power and the freedom that is and lies within radical responsibility, is that we now thus are free to live as we are uniquely created to be. Because thank God there's not more than one of you, because the world couldn't probably handle that if you're really walking in your power. We need each one of us to be fully alive and fully unique and fully in our own respective frequency.
absolutely. I couldn't have said it better. Thank you for that. This is awesome. I'm gonna have to
Mhm.
re-listen to this. That was really, really good. And I might have to borrow some of that too, if that's with your permission.
I
But
might have to
but
borrow some of what you got. We're on the same
right,
page. I love
right.
it.
The matter is that's right. See, most people, when stuff happens, because stuff happens, okay? So, but most people, they are going to either do one of two things, Christine. They're either going to react
Mhm.
or they're going to respond.
Yes.
And if you react, you're coming from an emotional point of view, and
Mhm.
you're firing away, whatever, you blame and whatever. But if you respond to something, then what happens is you're really taking responsibility for your meaning that you give it to, because
Mm.
everybody, whatever happens in your life, you give a meaning to.
Yes. Right.
Right. And if we can get rid of all those things that that we heap on ourselves, that we put on
Right.
ourselves, that cause us to question ourselves, that cause us to give up
Mhm.
in moments of challenges, you know if we can take back control of that stuff, then we're able to
Mhm.
really live the epic, what I call the
Yes.
epic ideal life that you're destined to live.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Say that one more time. Just that's so exciting that that's possible. Can you say that one more
It's
time?
it's absolutely spot. So when we take responsibility, okay, for everything that happens in our life,
Mm.
and not react and not blame and not victim. I'm saying it differently because I never say the same thing twice, by the way. And so when we do that stuff, all right, when we take total ownership, when we take ownership of who we are, then we get to live the epic ideal life we desire and deserve.
Let's
And
go.
the only one that can live that is you.
Mm.
And I got to tell you, man, listen, I've been doing this a long time, as you have, okay?
Mhm.
And that doesn't mean we're old or not, because age is just a number anyway. But the truth of the matter is, man, everything. I remember when I finished speaking at a Harbecker event one time, and I tell my story. I'm very transparent about the coke and all that stuff, right? And the shit that I did. Excuse my language, okay? The so I remember coming off stage and somebody coming up to me and going, "Oh my God, don't you regret all that stuff?" And
Wow.
and I didn't have a watch, but I said to whoever it was, I said, "Tell me what time it is." They said, "Well, it's 2 o'clock." I said, "Great. No, here's the story. So today's date, whatever date it was, at 2
Mm.
p.m., everything I've ever done in my life has gotten me to this point and my ability to talk to you. So, so
Mm.
my point is that
Yes.
all the stuff that's happened in your life is a microcosm or a
Mm.
macrocosm of who you are, okay? And
Right.
you get to change particular points of the ones that you don't like. So I said, do I regret? I don't regret anything. Now, could I have done it different? Well, sure, but I couldn't, so I'm not going to worry about it.
Yeah. And to your point, Paul, every single moment, every relationship, every experience, to bring it full circle to the very beginning of our conversation, each one put you in that seat.
Hmm.
And that's how I feel when I look back over just, so much loss, and ultimately the death of a future that I had dreamed of when my
Mm.
marriage fell apart. It's like I would actually never undo that, because I love and am deeply grateful for who I am today and where I am today and what I've learned and my mission. Because here's the thing, is that each one of those experiences and relationships, so long as we're taking radical responsibility to go inward, each piece, it's like a paint stroke in the picture that is our life. And the more that our mission is revealed. But if we're not taking the time to allow for everything around us to serve as a mirror and go inward, we're never actually going to know what is our unique purpose. Because that's the thing. It's not just showing up and being unique for the purpose of my own self-gratification. It's showing up with the alignment of frequency and uniqueness for the purpose of what I'm called to do, and the love
Absolutely.
that I meant to give to the world and to those around me. And to the world is so broad. I believe this to my core, that each one of us is here for a reason. And so if we're not taking the responsibility to go inward, we're never going to be able to fulfill on that mission and that call.
I got goosebumps.
Me too.
That's beautiful. That's the truth. So
Mhm.
and going back to what we said originally, and just before I do it, I guess I wanted to anchor something you said, which is the whole paint stroke. Okay, so
Mm,
every day we get up with a blank canvas
yeah.
that we get to paint any way we want to, and how you're painting it depends and is determined by the frequency that you're in.
Mm,
Okay.
mhm,
And so,
mhm.
getting back to this whole idea of, as you started the conversation, every experience, every relationship, every choice, every action that you take in your life from the beginning to this moment now, which is,
Right.
8 o'clock, whatever it is, has had a profound effect on
Yes.
who I am and
Yes.
how I show up. And it's not how I'm going to
Mm.
show up for you, Christine, because the only way I can show up for you is if I show up for me.
Now, I just got chills in that regard, because so many, I still wrestle with this, Paul. I still show up for my parents the way I think that they want me to. And God love them. They are one. I adore my parents. The other day I had this realization. I heard someone say something, and I looked inward and I was like, man, the role of in my life right now that I'm most proud of is daughter. I love my
Mm,
parents. And I cherish every moment, because I don't know how long I have with them. They're not frail
sure.
by any means, but I just really value them. So, and I still wrestle with saying what I think that they want me to hear. and
Yeah.
still speaking what I believe, but framing it so that and so there's something about the wisdom of being able to relate with multiple people and knowing how to frame for the purpose of it landing and resonating. However, this is where it's so critical that the ability to empathize with someone and be able to speak their language, I say that in air quotes, is always powered by authenticity within. Because if we're disconnected, we're going to be showing up for them and then showing up for me rather than being able to show up for them powered from within and powered
Mhm.
from showing up for myself first and foremost. So I love like the interconnection there of how yes, we can. And that's the ultimate goal, is that we can show up for other people, but it has to come from this inner place. So to your point about frequencies, you said 3 things that just really stood out to me about how do we ensure alignment? And man, what are the relationships in our lives? What are our inputs? What are we feeding? I was thinking about our mind, and James Allen has this book, As a Man Thinketh, and he
I
likens
got
our
it.
mind to a garden. And so what are we feeding? How are we tending to the soil? You know, what nutrients are there? What are we giving our minds every single day? And that speaks to the inputs from the external of the TV shows, the books, etc., but also the self-talk. You know,
Mm.
what are we telling ourselves? And having an audit running of the words and narratives that are internal, and then tracing the roots to where did those start? Are those actually, is that my voice? Or is that the
Mm.
voice of my best friend when I was 5 saying, you know, teasing me incessantly about something that really caused a deep wound, and that narrative is actually her voice? Or is it a voice of literally a lie that is just something external outside of me? You know what I mean? Like, man, this is really important. How do we
A-
align our frequency?
Absolutely. And back to what you said about tending the garden.
Mm.
So so in order to tend the garden, I'm going to use one of your favorite things that you said was one of your favorite things. So I think I said that right. In order to tend to the garden, you have to take radical
Mm.
responsibility for the
Yes.
garden,
Yes. Oh.
because the garden won't grow if you plant or if you feed the
Mm.
garden nonsense, you're going to get nonsense.
Yeah.
But if you feed the garden inspiration, if you feed the
Mm.
garden good stuff, if you feed the garden things that really empower you, then that garden is going to flourish and you're
Mm.
going to thrive.
Mm.
And if you don't do that, so
Yeah.
you have to be radical responsibility, you have to be extremely mindful. Okay. And
Mm.
that word gets thrown around a lot. So I'm not going to get into why we got to be mindful. When I say mindful, you got to be aware. You got to be
Yes.
aware of what's going on in your life, man. What's
Mm.
around you? And so, I got millions of books, all right? And I look at them all, right? Now, I haven't read them all cover to cover, but I'm in an environment that empowers my environment, and my
Mhm.
environment empowers my environment.
Mm. Mm.
Because everything
Right.
starts from there. And so when
Mm.
people start looking outside themselves, that's because there's a hole, there's something missing.
Yes.
And
Yes.
just to piggyback on what you said a minute ago about the conversations about your parents. By the way, my mother died at
Mm.
104, right?
What a
And my grand
queen.
and my grandmother, this is the Italian side of my family, died at 109. So I'm going to be around a long time. So
Wow.
um, and I take care of myself. But the truth of the matter
Mm.
is, we tend
Yeah.
to express ourselves at times to certain people
Mm.
because we don't want to make them feel bad. I'll
Yes.
just start there. But the truth of the matter is, the power that you have to
Mm.
express yourself in your true, you use the word authenticity, which is in your authentic self, is
Mm.
if there's something going on with me and you, Christine, and I
Mm.
don't express it to you
Mm.
authentically,
Mm.
then I am not being true to me. And so
Yes.
if I say something to you, Christine, I don't really care. I shouldn't say this. If I say something to you, Christine, I can't control how you take it.
Mm.
I could only control
Yeah.
how I express it. And if it's
Yes.
expressed from love,
Mm.
then however it lands for you, is none of my business.
Mm, mm. Yes,
And
that's
and am
so
I
powerful.
and am I good at that all the time? No,
Right.
but I'm aware of it,
Yeah.
and which gives me the opportunity to really be mindful
Mm,
again when I'm in
mhm,
conversation with somebody. Okay. Because,
mm.
man, again, life happens, stuff happens, and people are going to rub you the wrong way, right way, left, right, up, down, whatever. Doesn't matter. But
Yes.
I call it your circle of brilliance. So everybody has the circle of brilliance. And
Mm,
and a circle of brilliance is who are the people that are in this circle who get
mm,
you to live in your brilliance.
mm, mm. Yeah. Paul, it's so funny that you say that because Kelsey on Instagram just said, "Are you allowing your garden to be taken from, or are you guarding it just as much as you are feeding it?" So there is something of like the garden of our mind. It's so in alignment with what you just said. Are we actually putting, I think of it almost like this hedge of protection around the garden. The
Mm,
cover of my book is a great big beautiful tree, and I think of kind of the visual I have of our self and our soul and our mind, and how it all kind of works together is that there's this beautiful tree in the middle of the garden, and then we have these like plots of soil and little plots of gardens in raised beds, that represent our mind. And then the tree, underneath the tree, is like this cavernous hole that is our soul. And from this deep well, right, springs the mindsets that are in these
hmm
little plots of gardens around. But we have to have a hedge of protection, because
Well,
otherwise people are going to have access and they're going to come in and pull out, what we've worked so hard to tend to and plant and sow. What were you going to say?
no, I'm with you. I'm with you on that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I couldn't agree with you more. So I mean, the truth of the matter is, and I talk about this every morning when I do my good morning, great day. After that's the last thing I do when my morning ritual is I write.
Mm.
Is I always say that it's time you stop protecting you from
Hmm.
you.
Mm. Can you lean into that?
So what happens is the uncertainty that shows up in life, which gets you to question your self-worth, your vision, your mission, your purpose,
Huh.
is always present. Okay. and
Yes.
and and when you're aware of what that is, you can either feed
Wow.
that feed that with all the kind of stuff that's going to make that flourish, which you don't want to do.
Mm.
Or what you're going to do is you're going to change your viewpoint. Okay.
Mm.
and be looking at ways to empower and grow that uniqueness of who you are, so that when you
Yes.
get to go out into the world and I do these kind of things. Listen, I made notes. I got notes for this call, right? I looked
I
at
have
them.
notes
I looked at them 5 minutes before the call, and then I said, "Okay, where's your energy, bro?
too. Mm.
This is going to be awesome. It's going to just flow. It's going to flow. The reason it's going to flow is because we're in the right frequency." Okay.
Yes.
And this call is not about me, or it's not about you. It's about who's
Right.
ever listening.
Right.
Who's ever listening. If we can change one point of view,
Mm.
one purpose that somebody has, one
Mm.
things of what help them not question who they are, whatever we can give people that are listening, because I'm here to
Mm.
serve, Christine. I'm here to serve. Okay.
Yes.
So if we can empower people to go, you know what? I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna be who I am. I'm gonna stop protecting me from me, because we put up
Wow.
barriers. Now it's okay to be aware of of
Mhm.
of who you don't want in your circle of brilliance. It's okay. That's okay, because everything again is going to emanate from what comes into you, what's going to come out. But if you're
Mm.
gonna if you're gonna start to protect yourself from things that you think on a
Yes.
on a conscious level, that you think are not going to be in your best interest, That's one thing. But if you're protecting yourself from things that challenge you,
Right.
then you better let those things go. Because if you
Mm,
if you can challenge yourself, you'll
mm,
rise to a new level of and a new paradigm. But if you
mm.
keep doing the same thing over and over and over, that's the definition of insanity, then you're going to get the same thing that happens in your life.
Right.
But when you challenge yourself, then you get to break free
Mm,
and go to
mhm.
new places that you might have thought were impossible. And I always tell people, when you think impossible, here's what you should say to yourself. Oh, no, no, no. I don't think impossible. You know why? Because I'm possible.
That's cute. I love that.
There's two words in there. I'm
Yep.
possible. And so that's the whole nine yards about it. So again, if there's a moral to this story for a second, is that everybody, when you go to sleep at night, be grateful and thankful. Okay, I go to sleep
Mm,
at night and I say a prayer and I'm grateful and thankful. When I wake up in the morning, the first thing I do is I say a prayer because I'm grateful and thankful for the opportunity to show up in a new day.
yeah.
Okay. And I'm not going to carry all the nonsense and all the
Mm,
mishigas, whatever, from the day before. I got a clean slate, a blank canvas.
yes.
So
Mm,
so you want to really tune in. So I call it tuning in. So my brain technology, which a lot of people call meditation, which I have no problem with, but I call it tuning in,
yeah.
right? Because tuning in, meditation is tuning in. And again, that's just the way I brand it. But you need to tune in and
Mm,
constantly check during your day, which is what I
right.
do. And I call it a personal discovery inquiry. You
Mm,
got to check in during the day. Where is your frequency?
yes.
It's pretty
Yeah.
simple. Where's your
Right.
frequency? And then if
Mm,
it's not aligned with how you want to show up and what you want to happen,
right.
and what you want to manifest and attract, to use words that are used quite a bit, but for this purposes they're fine. Then change something, man.
Yeah. Amen.
You know,
Let's go.
you know,
Yeah.
there's a fork in the road. Okay, I'm going down
Hmm.
the road. There's a fork in the road.
Right.
I can choose same old,
Right.
or I can choose new. I'm
Mm.
going new.
Me too. Me too. Paul, I am so incredibly grateful for your time today. This has been such a wonderful conversation, and I have a feeling like we could just talk for hours. So I'll take you up on your
And
invitation.
we'll do it again. And we'll do it
We'll do
again.
it again. I love it. One last thought as we wrap up. On the other side of radical responsibility is freedom,
Mm.
and we each have that opportunity. Paul, thank you for your time. Thank you for who you are and for sharing your story just so freely. I mean, man, each one of us is better because of it. So I appreciate you, my
I,
friend.
I appreciate you. I'm looking forward to meeting you in person. We'll
Me too.
as I like to say, since we're now deep friends, we'll talk constantly.
Good.